Okay, great. So we are back at Burntune Open Workshops where we've been talking about getting together to make music, sing, and play instruments to make the world a more musical place, right? And we want to reach out to people across the country and even globally to start their journey in music. The idea is to hold online workshops together for free so that people at least get a little dabble of what it feels like to collaborate with other musicians, right? We have a membership program where somebody who wants to study music deeply, like a little bit of singing maybe, or guitar or piano, we have memberships for that. Plus we have specialization where people who are part of this community and who can perform, take the next step and start showing others, what a performance looks like. And in an online world, this could be video or audio content, right? So to quickly do a recap of the previous session, we focused on how and why we can learn to sing, and we had some practice material here, plus a little bit of idea of you being able to practice along with some instrument. Even if you don't have an instrument, then at least a piano is great. Cool. So this workshop today is focused on exactly that, on understanding how the piano as such works, right? Okay, so the funny piano, why is the piano so easy? The piano is so easy because it's nothing but black and white notes, right? Now what I will do is I will be sharing my screen uh, to the piano itself, right? And I will be sending this in the chat, so anybody who's in this call wants to try out all the things that we're talking about can definitely go ahead and practice the same, because it's like super easy. Let me send the, yes, I send the chat. Perfect. Let me go ahead and show you how the piano is structured. Now, as you can see on my screen, I am on an online virtual keyboard. We have black keys and white keys, right? And there's a button here that hides the names of the notes, right? So let's understand the white keys. White keys means that all the notes are natural. What I mean by natural is that it's just C, it's just D, E, F, G, A, B, or C, right? What are unnatural notes? They are not unnatural, but they are the black notes, right? You can see here, it's a C sharp. That hashtag symbol over there, that's called sharp in music. So C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. So all together, we have 5 black notes and 7 white notes. And this just repeats along the piano. So if you can see 2 and 3, right? So that was a C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, right? The same thing repeats in the next C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, right? And this is how the piano is organized. So here's a trick. How do you find the C note when the notes are not written on your piano, right? You look for the couplets. You look for 2 black notes together and you go to the white note in front of it. That's a C. So another C would be here. So if you can see 2 black notes, the note in front of it is C. What about this? These are also 2 black notes. Actually, this is a couple of 3 black notes, if you look at it properly, right? It's very different from the 2 black notes over here, right? So this 2 plus 3 makes the piano, right? Okay, so now if you want to see or practice singing, this is a great tool because you can just start with the C over here. The C over here is a, if you can see the black dot, that's a middle C, right? It's a central part of the instrument piano, and the female voices usually begin from here, while male voices will begin from here. So to give you a sample, this is sa re ga ma, and the female sample, which for me will be high, but for a female will be low, will be sa re ga ma. Great. So this is the structure basically, and if you remember shortcuts, you can easily find notes. For example, let's say the A note. The A note is located in between 3 black notes, right? Three black notes. The middle note is an A, right? Not the first one, the next one, right? Again, over here, if I put this off, right? You will look for three black notes, okay, these three, and the second white teeth in between is an A. So let me show you three black notes, and the second white one in between is an A. So that's how you'll figure out, right? Plus, the final thing is that in music, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and after G, A repeats. So it's not till Z, it's till G. Are we good? Does this make sense? Yeah? Okay, awesome. Cool. So let's go back to the, hold on, document that we're looking at, all right? So we spoke about the black and white notes. Now, if you look at this, this is how it's organized. So C, and the black note is C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp. Now, what is this weird thingy over here? You see like a D and a B. So in music, when you're going up, right, you're going sharp. So C upwards is called C sharp. But D, when you're coming down, that's a flat, right? And this D and the B symbol, that's a flat symbol. That means D minus 1 is D flat, while C plus 1 is a C sharp. And D flat and C sharp are the very same thing. That's why they appear on the same note twice. So some people can call this E flat, some people can call this D sharp. It's up to you, your choice, right? And look at this. Why did I make the structure? Because we start over here and we end over here, but then from here we start again. So the piano keeps on going in a loop. Like it starts sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, it goes next sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, it goes next sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. Right? It just keeps increasing. Look at the picture below, right? So here you have like, this is a very big picture, but again, like you see, it's just a repetition sequence, right? A repetitive sequence. Cool. So this is how the piano is exactly organized. What did we learn? We learned that the black notes are arranged like this, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. So you can just, if you want to find a note without looking at like any note names, you have a formula like where you look for 2 black notes and a white note in front of it. What about A? A is here, right? 3 black notes, and that's A, right? 3 black notes, and the second white in between is an A. Cool. Now let's look at octaves and intervals, right? Now, what is an octave? Like we discussed, like whenever a sequence repeats itself, it's an octave, right? But there's still a difference. It's not just repeating. The notes, yes, they repeat, but every note has a higher version and every note is a lower version. Let me show a sample of this. All right. So, like we had discussed earlier, and I think so most of all are aware. Sorry, this one here is the middle C, right? And you can see the C on top of it is another C, but what's the difference? While the same thing. La. What about the C before it? La. Right? So you have the full piano based on a very simple loop, right? And that difference is called octaves. Great. Okay. Now we will talk about how these octaves are organized to make a major scale, which is like your sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa, right? Let me go back to my piano. Right. Okay, so if you can, I hope you can see my piano right now. So if I start at C, that is a sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa. Now you realize that whole sa, re, ga, ma, pa, ni, sa sounds like a particular melody. Let's start at F. Let's just start at F and play from F to F and see if the same sound comes, okay? Almost the same. Let's try a D. Right? It's a very different Saregama Padhanisa, right? The main Saregama Padhanisa that we know is the major scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, which is very different from, let's say, this one. Let's say I'm starting here. See, it's a very different Saregama What we need to realize is that the first Saregama based on the C major scale has a pattern to it, and the pattern is this. Okay, when I go from C to D, I have a gap. What is the gap? This black note. So actually, I'm not going from C to D. D is not the next note. D is a note after the gap. So when I go from D now to E, is there a gap? Yes, there is. Right here, the black note. Right? So this forms two gaps. Now let me show you a picture. One second. Why do I keep sharing? I should share my entire screen. Right? Now look at this picture. All right. So this is exactly, this grid over here, the one below, is exactly in a proper shape to make you understand where the gaps exist. It exists between C and D, D and E. And you see I have noted it up here. So between C and D, there's a gap. Between D and E, there's a gap. Between E and F, there's no gap. So that means E doesn't have a sharp. E has an E flat, but it doesn't have a sharp. And F doesn't have a F flat. So there's nothing in between, right? Right? Which is what makes this structure. So you have a gap, gap, none. Am I going good so far? Yeah? Right? I'm talking about how each note is separated from each other with a gap, a particular structure, right? So we go gap between C and D, gap between D and E. So if you can see my screen, gap, gap, no gap, right? Okay, let's continue. Cool. So from F and G, again, there's a gap because the one in between is F sharp, like we had discussed over here, right? Between F and G is an F sharp. Cool. Between G and A, there's a gap because that's a G sharp or a A flat. And now between A and B, there's a gap, right? Finally, between B and the new C, there's none. So if you look at the structure, gap, gap, none, gap, 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 none. If you remember the formula, gap, gap, none, gap, 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 none, then you will be able to play the major scale from any note. For example, let's go here. So what was the formula? Just remember this. It's a gap, gap, none, gap, 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 none. So let's say if I'm to start on E over here, E, right? What will be my next note? My next note will be after a gap. So will it be this? Definitely not. There's no gap in between. Will it be this? Yes. What is the gap in between? F. So if you see, I will start from E, jump the gap and end up on F sharp. And that's my first gap I've acquired. I've acquired my first gap. Let's go to the next one. So from E to F sharp we have done. Now after F sharp, there's a gap, is it? Yes, the second gap is what we need to cover, right? So from F sharp, this is the gap and I land up on G sharp. So the first gap I skipped, which is F, the second gap I skipped, which is G, and this is what I got. E, F sharp, G sharp. Okay, gap, gap done. Now there's a none, right? There is no gap. So if I am here, E, first gap done, second gap done. The next note, will it be a black note or a white note? If it will be a black note, send me a smiley emoticon. If it will be a white note, send me a popper, you know, the celebration emoticon. Okay, great. So From here to here, there's no gap, right? So gap, gap, none, right? And this makes your, you hear a sa re ga ma instead of, which is a sa re ga ma. It's not your major scale, right? Okay, cool. So we got the gap, gap, none, gap. Then we have two more gaps to go, right? Sorry, three more gaps to go. So first gap done, second gap done, then none gap. Then we have three more gaps to jump. So if I jump from A, I will jump this gap and I'll land up on B. Another two gaps to go. From B, can I jump on C? Thumb down, thumb up. Can I jump on C? Yes, no. No. Very good. I need to go to C sharp. Sorry, Ayan. So the thing is, between B and there's a gap. So this is the note I will skip, right? And I'll end up on C sharp. Making sense? So let's start from again. Gap, gap, none, gap. So gap, gap, no gap. Then three more gaps. So first gap, second gap, right? Because after B, there's no black note. That's why the black note is basically the note you land on after this gap, right? Hope this is not confusing, right? Okay, so E, gap, gap, none, gap, gap, and final gap. So from C sharp, it will go to D sharp. And finally E. So to uncover this, our notes are E, F sharp, G sharp, A, sorry, E, F sharp, one gap, F sharp to G sharp, second gap, A, which is no gap, B gap, two more gaps to go, gap, gap, none, right? Okay, so this is the formula, right? Now, in the beginning, you need not calculate this, but I'm telling you, this is a formula for any note that you start with. For example, I have made a C major scale picture here. Like you can see, between C and D, there's a gap. Between D and E, there's a gap. Between E and F, no gap, right? So gap, gap, none. Gap, 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 none. Now I made another picture for you, which is on the G major scale. So it starts on G. Remember where G was? G was three black notes. The first teeth. The second teeth is A. The first tooth. Right? So over here is where I start. So G, then there's a gap, A, gap, B, no gap, so C, then a gap, D, then a gap, E, then a gap again, and this time F sharp, because white becomes the one you need to jump over. There's no black note here. So E, jump the white, end up on a black. And finally, you get the G, right? So let me show you how this looks like. Starting on G, right? Same way, let's uncover the D major scale. So here's the D major scale. So remember, D starts in the middle of two black notes, not the 3-1, the two black notes, right? And again, D, there's the gap, E, there's a gap, and remember, we're not stepping on the white note because there's no black note. We need to step on a black note, right? So D, E, which is the gap, E to F sharp, this is the gap, this white space. Then after this, no gap. So you end up on G, right? G, there's a gap, as you can see. You end up on A. From A, you end up on B, and you can see the gap, right? So this is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Final gap, C sharp and D, right? I know too many notes I'm talking about, right? But once you get it, once you get the music, right, then you can go like this. So gap, gap, no gap, 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 and remember this, gap, no gap. So essentially, now when you want to sing, you need to remember that you can sing from any of these keys. Let's say you want to sing in C, so you will go like sa. So you just need to remember the notes. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. Let's say you want to do it in D, so you go sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, right? This is where the confusion comes in. So what is the C major scale? Just you have to use the mathematics and learn up that pattern, right? What is the D major scale? Do the mathematics, learn that pattern, right? I did C and D. Let's also do G because we had covered that. So G will start from, sorry, here, right? So see, for me now, G is very high. Sa, sa, re, right? So you noticed this is where the female voice would dominate while my voice will suffer, right? But practicing through all these keys will then tell you, okay, songs are nothing but sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa in these different patterns. So that's basically the knowledge that I would like you to take away from today's class, right? All right. So I hope this class was informative. I know there was a lot of, what should I say, technical things that I had discussed, right? Definitely the video is there for us to go back to, but I do want you to take out your piano, and like I said, when you want to practice a song, find out the notes of that piano on online, play it along. You will see sometimes you'll have black and white notes and white and black notes. That's because they belong in a scale. They either belong in C, they either belong in G or D or F or A, right? And when you play those notes, right, you will come to realize, okay, fine. Like if you start remembering the G scale, the G major scale, and F sharps and C sharps, you say this sounds more like the D major scale. This sounds more like the G major scale, which will come with practice, but definitely don't break your head over it. Okay, so go ahead and download or like find out what the notes are of your favorite song, play them on your virtual piano, right? And figure out why or which scale your particular song is in. Great. All right. So thank you for joining the session, guys. Today we did not do much singing, but I just wanted to cover this big part because it's actually pretty simple, but I would want you all to experiment it. Was it fun? Somewhat? Yeah? Mega is saying hi. Yeah. Would it, Ayan? Was it cool? Okay, great. I think I'm not getting reception.
Yes, I was good. It was good. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Ayan, cool. Awesome. So thank you guys. I'll meet you on next Saturday, which is going to be a fun session. It's called a camera for work, where I'm going to show you a lot of mobile apps that you can use to make your videos, your song videos, your music videos pretty cool, and start using it to post it on social media to let people know you're an artist, right? Again, this can be something that you might be very confident to do. This can be something that you're very confident to do. Either ways, the thing is you need to start creating content. And like any artist will tell you, any company will tell you, any business will tell you, if your content is not there on the internet somewhere, basically your business, your artistry, what you're learning is not there. Like, see, if I'm a very crazy geography student, right, I will go to places, I will look at the rocks, I will look at the animals, I'll take a video of them. But then if I'm just learning geography in school, I don't know what I'm going to show to the world, right? So the idea is to do what you actually like and believe in, and thereby improve. Cool. So thank you guys for making it. I hope I see you next weekend and weekday as well. If you have friends, tell them also to join the community sessions. We're keeping it very simple and accessible to everybody. Cool. So can I hear you guys say bye?
Bye, sir.
Bye. Take care. Bye, Mudit. Bye, Ann.
Bye, sir. Bye, sir. Bye.
Bye.